With the ever emerging use of AI in the creative industry, ranging from generating or borrowing images to writing simple code and text documents, it was really only a matter of time before AI inside of games were in some way influenced by AI. And that's what we'll be looking at today, thanks to the sponsor of this video, Inworld. If you're familiar with the channel and the content that I provide, you've probably noticed that I don't work with a lot of different sponsors, and I only really cover something if I can see myself using it or I think it will be useful in a wider sense for the viewers of the channel. Inworld are one of those where I think, especially moving forward, this is going to be growing and getting a lot more useful and versatile in the options that it provides. Inworld are basically trying to improve the quality and experience of adding characters to various games. We can see down here, one of the first things that really made me more confident in the product is they are a verified solution through Unity directly. So they have direct verified integration into the Unity engine. We'll of course be looking at this in the sense of using it with Unreal today. And we can see that Epic have also acknowledged them with the work that they've been doing and provided them with a mega grant. So just to say that there's definitely some validity, I think, with the company and the product as well. Anybody can use this. There's an option to get started completely for free. You just need to sign up through the Getting Started link here. All of the links for this will be in the description down below. You can sign up with a free account. There are different paid tiers that you'll need, potentially depending on the level of integration that you want within your game, but everyone can try what I'll be showing off today completely free of charge. The documentation, the demo projects and everything that we'll be looking at are top quality. And before we even get started creating our own character or getting anything set up in the engine, there's a really cool part of the website called Inworld Arcade. Basically provides this list of pre-made characters, so community-made characters with different personalities, informational kind of topics to pull from that you can come in and talk to here. As it is the season, we're going to go with jolly old Saint Nick. Just needed to sign in there and we can start a conversation with this. Now we've also got the option up here to go to the avatar chat. Just worth mentioning, again, there are so many features provided that we can link in with this. This is going to be another one that we won't cover, but all of this is documented, and that is the use of these 3D avatars. We can actually create these ourselves through the use of Ready Player Me, which is an existing avatar creation platform. It allows you to generate these 3D avatars, kind of a nice stylized art style, and you can also use those to import them into the engine as well. I'll just start writing a few things here. We also have some voiceovers, so I'll let that play in the background and we can see what Santa has to say. So I'm going to go with the simple quiz here, see how much context this character has been given to his background and lore.
I have 8 of the most wonderful reindeer in the whole wide world. Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner and Blitzen. They help me deliver presents to all the good boys and girls around the globe. So what do you want for Christmas this year?
So actually a lot more information than I thought he was going to give. My next question was going to be if he got the correct number to see if he could name them all, but he jumped straight into that. So just to show off the kind of things that you can do. And this isn't really meant to be used for the game production side of things. This is really just a demonstration of different personalities and the way that you can interact with these characters. Where do you live?
Why, I live at the North Pole. It's a magical place full of elves and snow, and it's the perfect spot for me to plan on my yearly gift-giving journey. But enough about me. What do you want for Christmas this year?
Just wanted to show that we can also get this working with voice activation. This is something available, I think, in Unity and inside of Unreal as well. There's some really cool features to play around with, and hopefully that's got you interested in what this product has to offer. Just a final thing to mention before diving in, this isn't going to be an in-depth tutorial like you may have seen previously on this channel. The documentation genuinely is really, really top quality. So if you decide this is something that you wanted to take a look at, you'll very easily be able to follow the documentation provided in a step-by-step manner to get everything implemented as you want into your project. This is just going to be an overview of some very high-level stuff, looking at how we can create a new character and then how I can get either that character or possibly another one with a bit more information into a project in Unreal, just to see the main useful and pretty impressive features on the go. To get started, we just press the Get Started button here. If you don't have an account already, that will just allow you to sign up with either an existing Google account, or you can create a new one, or some various options there. Free account, just a small amount of information needed, and you can get access to the main bulk of the suite here. From this page, just to kind of very quickly run you through things, we have the Inworld workspace. So this is our workspace where, in this case, we've got some pre-made characters. This is a very useful example that we'll be looking at on the way that you can set them up with personalities, their kind of general pool of knowledge coming from the common knowledge pool here, the scenes in which they live in or kind of work within, and these can have various characters assigned to different scenes. So for example, if we're looking at here, if you're familiar with Alice in Wonderland, these are avatars of the Wonderland characters. We've got the cat, the Mad Hatter, the caterpillar, and so on. And the caterpillar is obviously going to be linked with the caterpillar's mushroom. The Mad Hatter will be within the Mad Hatter's house. And these just have bits of information about the characters which are assigned to them. And if you wanted to, you can pull in other characters into these scenes. Then the common knowledge is the pool of what these characters will know about. So we can give, again, linking different characters to different pools of common knowledge. So it gives them more to talk about potentially than just themselves or just the kind of small amount of knowledge a common NPC in a game would know about. So this is where I think things get very, very useful. We'll be looking at the integration a little bit later. This is just the details, the keys and things that we might need to put across to our project. And then if you wanted to, if you play around with any of the interactions, very similar to the Inworld arcade, you can come in to these characters and initiate conversations with them through the chat option just to test them before you pull things across to the engine. If you wanted to go back and download or look through the previous conversations that you've had to see how they responded and if you're getting the kind of information that you wanted, then you can come back in here to the interactions and look at that. So that's just a very brief overview of what's on offer. And of course, the important thing is we can create a new character from up here. I just want to say that I think it's going to be really useful for you to see the process of creating a new character. So I'm going to go through that process with you now. Just a quick disclaimer though, I don't have the best creative writing skills. So we won't be making some kind of groundbreaking NPC character that everyone's going to want to use. In fact, in this case, I'm just going to implement an NPC version of myself. And we'll give ourselves a small description as well, just to get the character started. We're going to go to the character creation, and this is where we can start adding the bulk of information. We'll go through the drop downs kind of one at a time. Motivations, in this case, will be very similar to the core description. We'll change the verbiage a little bit. So we'll say gameplay programming and content creation. Really very dull, but we can start adding more information as we go through. We can give the information about the identity of the character. So we'll go to the role, which is going to be programmer. Alternative names, we could potentially put in the channel name, but in this case, I'll just leave that blank. Hobbies and interests, we can probably see where this is going. Of course, these are all separated by commas, so you can put in specific tags with the comma separation here. And then this is quite interesting. If you're using a broadly known either fictional or non-fictional character that has a Wikipedia link, then you can link that here. And again, it will pull all of the information where relevant from the Wikipedia link, so you don't have to put everything in by hand. Now, at this point, I don't think I'm widely known about to have a Wikipedia page, so we won't have one of those. And this definitely isn't a suggestion to go make one of those. So what we'll do is we'll jump down to the personality. We can have some comma separated character traits just here. In this case, I'm just going to use the sliders. Something about readability of this, just so that you're not confused, is when you're using this, let's say that we wanted to make the character very sad. You might be tempted to pull it all the way up here, thinking that's like 100% sadness. Just keep in mind that you've got two different sides. So this would be sort of neutral. This would be fully joyous, and this would be fully sad. So just keep that in mind when you're going through this. We can start changing things between the different emotions here. And then we've also got things less about emotions. This one kind of stuck out to me, that we've got the option for kind of looking at their views as well. So rather than just the way that it might be expressed as an emotion, this will give you some potential different feedback when talking to different types of figures in a game or something, which could be quite interesting. That would just be a quick kind of setup to roughly replicate emotional states, personality, things like that. Then we've got our facts and knowledge. These things, one thing to mention is that you can put information up here about your character. So like broad things about what they do are the kind of recommendations from Inworld that I've seen so far. So keep this kind of brief. We don't want the characters talking too much about themselves, so we'll keep this fairly minimal. What we will do is the bulk of the information you want them to potentially throw into conversations will come down here. So this will be things about maybe their background, information related to other characters, quests, shop items, depending on the type of character. And I'll talk a little bit more on that in a moment as well. And this follows some simple syntax, as we can see here. We can put things within the curly braces, such as player, if you had a player character. Or if this was just a standard kind of NPC, we've got character, which I think I said I'll kind of set this up as an NPC, throw in a bit of information, and ideally that would be putting in more lines than this. And again, we'll jump back over to the Wonderland characters a little bit later to get a proper idea of the way that things can be laid out and just the bulk of information you can put inside of these. So this would be the kind of section specifically related to the character, maybe information about where they live, their direct relatives, the things that they might have on sale, if they're a shopkeeper, which is a very cool example provided in some of the in-world content as well that I'll link in the description below. And then on top of this, we can go down to the add common knowledge. And remember, that comes from this common knowledge section over here. We can add this here, and this would allow us to have things. At the moment, obviously, the common knowledge is mostly just about the other characters, and then there's a whole bulk of information about Wonderland itself, what it's about, where it is, the different features within Wonderland. But this could be things about different provinces, different rulers within the game, and things like that could all be in here. The thing most relevant to the NPC and what you want them to display, and you can tick a number of these up to 5, save that, and then your character will know about not just the things that you put here, but also anything within this common knowledge branch as well. Moving on to the voice. Now, this is one of the things I think, if anything, is going to kind of need to grow in leaps and bounds, as it were. The text and everything which is provided, and some of the responses are really quite impressive already. But the voices, especially if you've got a game which is already fully voiced by professional voice actors, I think this would be one of those things you'd probably just want to not use these at all. And maybe have a lot of RPGs still do this, where you might have fully voiced main characters, and then you'll just maybe have gibberish noises or something for NPCs, and just still show the dialogue text box when you're getting their responses and things back. But we'll just have a quick look at what one of these voices might look like. Ember, for some reason, caught my eye there.
Hello, I'm Ra.
Okay, so maybe not that one. Discord.
Hello, I'm Ra.
I'm wondering, okay, I have put the B there. They just seem to be ignoring the B on my name, which is fine. That also caught my eye there. That seems pretty apt.
Hello, I'm Ra.
I mean, I'm not that bad, but yeah, we can go with that one. So we'll go with Cranky for the voice, and then we can change the pitch and the talking speed.
Hello, I'm Ra. Hello, I'm Ra.
We can have mixed results from these. So it's great to kind of get the general feedback and see what's happening. But like I mentioned, it might not be something that would be fitting of all games, but it's one of those things that could definitely, with a lot of improvement in the future, still be very usable. Moving on to the dialogue style then, we have a few types of different options here. So we'll go with blunt and cranky. Again, I think we're building a pretty accurate character representation here. We can give them some information about how the dialogue will be fed back. So some examples of if a character says this to my NPC, how would they generally respond? We're not going to go too in depth with this. So we've got the experimental features. Use emotions is on by default, so we'll just leave it as that. If you start toggling these, you can see we'll get some different sections down here. So I'm just going to leave those for now, but again, something to play around with. You have full access to this once you've signed up. And then finally, the scene in which they're associated. So again, I've given a quick overview of that earlier. So we can use this drop down. We can find one of the scenes and we'll put ourselves in the Mad Hatter's house. So this now has kind of a full context, and we could use this in the game if we wanted a really boring NPC in our project. So instead of that, what we're going to do is, now that I've saved that, just to show that this will appear here, the thing that we'll need later is the machine readable ID for integration. But what we'll probably do is we will pick from someone like the Mad Hatter. We can see that this character has a lot more information about themselves, full identity, things like more in-depth hobbies and interests, a different way of showing the different personality traits that we'll come across with this character. Caffeinated, a very good one now, I've just noticed. We've got the facts and knowledge. Like I said, you'd want to fill this out a lot more, and where possible, keep this kind of empty and put most of the information down here in their facts and knowledge. We can see that they've got information from the common knowledge pool about all of the other characters and Wonderland. The voice is set, and we have the dialogue style example as well, which is something which is worth seeing. So how the character might respond in different situations to give the AI an idea of how to run things. Now, one thing I did want to point out, this one, I want to try this one because I've not used the Mad Hatter yet. This one doesn't have anything super useful for contextual stuff, but we might have some interesting talks about things like TikTok and becoming, especially as an influencer or a content creator would be a better word. But one thing that I did find really interesting when I've tried out the caterpillar before is under the facts and knowledge of this character. This line here I wasn't aware of, but the caterpillar acts as it says here, a kind of greeter for Wonderland. My first instinct when I brought them into the project was just to ask questions about what Wonderland has to offer, what he knows about Wonderland, just to kind of test the knowledge base. And at some point he said there's a lot of things to visit and a lot of things to buy from Wonderland. So I asked what money they use, and then it made me come back and read the descriptors here, because he then just gave me 100 Wonderbucks. And it's quite an interesting thing that it's not just offered up front. You don't just say hi and he says, here's 100 Wonderbucks. You have to kind of dig down these branching narrative chains where he mentioned something that triggered my interest. I asked something else, and then he offered money to go in, explore Wonderland, which I just thought was really cool. And this is where I can see this going with different NPCs and games, because it's something which can be quite at the forefront of many games. If we think of something like Skyrim, where A lot of people think of the world building and the deep writing and lore behind things where you can go and read books for hours to find out about different parts of the world that they've been building. And that is definitely a big part of that type of game. But then if you think about the other side of things, the things that get the least attention and become, for instance, the biggest meme content are the type of things which are very much at the forefront of the player experience that you can't really get away from, which would be the roaming guards. And of course, I'll be talking about the roaming guards, where every single one of them, regardless of where you are, have had the same experience of being an adventurer until they took the arrow to the knee. And this is why I think something like this could be super, super useful. I couldn't see this replacing like the writing for a main character. Of course, your main characters, your story arc characters, you want them to be very, very kind of directionally written to hit certain arcs of the story and have their growth and always have the same responses to the same prompts, or even like having it fully scripted or whatever, depending on the game. But for something like an NPC where you could give different guards in different provinces information, maybe common knowledge about their background, the ruler of that region, maybe some of them will hold side quests or something. So this way you avoid that issue where just because they are an inconsequential character as far as the story is concerned, it doesn't mean they always then have to say the same thing and become a meme because they're just so in your face with it that they will approach you to tell you the same story for the 100th time. We can avoid things like this, the things that people you wouldn't want to potentially pay writers to hand write hundreds of different guards. We can hand that type of task over to AI that can do a better job, and it can just make those experiences that little bit more interesting. So all of this just kind of started coming together to show the full potential I think this could have for different parts of certain games. So as I mentioned though, what we're going to do is we'll take one of these characters. I'm going to go with the Mad Hatter to see what they have to offer in the project. And that will be the next thing, is jumping over to Unreal. For a brief kind of exploration of the documentation, I'd recommend going through all of this yourself. You've got the very basics of how to download the plugin, install the plugin into a fresh project, setting up things like the microphone functionality, and some very basic getting started projects. Now, the one that I found works best though, and I would recommend downloading this one just straight away. If you wanted to go through the getting started stuff and going with a blank project, then feel free. But I would definitely recommend going for the gallery project, and we can see there's a download here. And this has just a bunch of different examples, different types of characters, different things on display like specific emotions, changing the way that the NPC responds to you, and things like that. This has all of the plugins pre-installed, so you don't need to do anything at all. And it also has a really useful tool set where we can just essentially click a few buttons and bring in all of the stuff that we need from our browser here. So it gets rid of some of the more tedious steps like taking the API keys and stuff like that. So this is a really good one just to get up and running, bring a character straight in and quickly test out what is available. So I'd say do that first. Whilst we're getting the next parts ready, if you did want to follow along with this section, going through more of the Unreal stuff, come here, download this project. It is a C++ based project. So when you have this downloaded, you will need to first of all right click on your U project. If you're on Windows 11, you'll need to go to the extra options and select the Generate Visual Studio project files, generate the SLN, and then just build this through either Visual Studio, or in my case, I've built this through Rider. And with that done, you'll be ready to jump into the project here. And this, as I've said, will be all up and running, and we can start running around and looking at the existing templates. So the MetaHuman is quite simply showing how to get a MetaHuman character into the project. You might have saw at the top left-hand side of the screen there, that was connecting and signing into a session. So this is all ready to go.
Hello player. I am an example of Unreal Engine MetaHuman here to demonstrate how this technology can be used in Inworld.
So just a quick example from that character. The more interesting ones, I quite like the emotional design. This one, you can highlight over these and we can change what type of emotion the character's feeling. So he's neutral at the moment. If we go to disgust.
I'm feeling so disgusted right now.
As he said there.
Wow. I'm so surprised. What a strange experience. Because it's something that doesn't happen to me very often. It's a new emotion for me to explore and try out.
Cool. So we can kind of question what's happening. We can ask them, essentially the idea here is you can ask them the same question when they're under different emotions and see how they respond differently based on what they're feeling. We're going to be coming back to the integration demo. So this is a blank template mannequin character that we can just drop in our designed characters from the website. We've then got trigger information, so we can come in. This is showing how we can link context to not just the character and what's being said, but points around the world. And this was something, again, really interesting from one of the videos I'll link by Inworld, where they show an NPC shopkeeper which will respond to the player picking up items they haven't paid for or throwing things around the shop, adding that level of immersive kind of feedback so the shopkeeper isn't just passively watching you do really random stuff and getting away with it. They start calling you out. ask you why you've got something you shouldn't have, tell you to put down the items and things like that. So pretty cool.
Motion detected in area alpha. I will patrol the area.
We can see this one's just going to respond to the different areas that I'm stood.
Motion detected in area beta. I will now begin patrolling.
And that will just walk back and forward, patrolling, saying when the area is secured, and you can still go in and talk to them as well. And then we've got an animation demo showing you things like the difference between chaining animation, mixing them, pausing in between talking, and having different emotional states, things you can play with. All of that is there, ready to go. The thing that we're interested in is the integration demo. We're going to come back into the web browser in just a moment, and we will add a brain. We can see this one doesn't actually let us interact with it yet. We don't get that window pop up, and that's because it doesn't have a brain implemented so far. So the final time we'll just need to be back inside the browser on the Inworld page. Decided actually I'm going to go for the Cheshire Cat so we can actually look at some information. I've not used this one either, so we can see what kind of details the Cheshire Cat has. Another one which is useful for visitors, we can ask some information about motivational or personal coach. Nice. Could be useful. So yeah, we'll take this one. That sounds very useful. So like I've said, what we want to do is come to the main character page here, use the hamburger option, copy the machine readable ID for integration, hop back on over to Unreal. We're going to get to the integration demo. The easiest way is just to grab this. It has the map exposed. We can navigate to that in the browser, double click to open, come in here, grab the character. With the character opened, what we want to do is open the full blueprint, grab the Inworld component. This has a brain name. This isn't really the name. This is that code that we've just collected from our browser over there. And that's really all that we need to do here. So that will be in regards to this character, at least. There's a couple of extra steps, and this is where that tool set comes in handy that I mentioned provided in this project. So just as an example of what these different steps are doing, if we came in now, we will get that box. So that wasn't showing earlier. If we come in and ask a question, we're not going to get any feedback because we haven't linked everything to our browser session. So what we want to do is we're going to go to our tools. We'll go to Editor Utility Widgets and Inworld Studio. This will open the thing down here. I did forget, sorry, there's one more time that we need to go back to the browser, and that is for our temporary security authorization token. So we'll hop back on over again. We're going to go to our integrations. We won't need these. What we want is our Studio access token. So we're just going to come here, we'll copy this, and this is all we need to paste in here, and that will let us log in. This can take a little while. In this case, that was pretty much immediate. And then what we want to do is, if you've been creating your own kind of custom workspaces, you can assign the workspace. In this case, I only have the Wonderland demo. Selecting that will then give us context of the different characters and scenes within the workspace. So we're going to go with the, we've got the Cheshire Cat, haven't we? So we're going to go with the Cheshire Cat scene. The API key, it can pull that across for us. And then we can see here that we have access to the Cheshire Cat. We can assign this to the current map, and then we'll get some new actors created over here. So this is just our session controller. This will create that session that I mentioned you could see in the top left being generated earlier, which we'll need to link to our data sets over here. And then a final thing, now this isn't required and doesn't work super well at the moment, is that we can bring in that more kind of interesting looking avatar that I mentioned. So if we click on the create blueprint option here, this really can take a while. This is going to create a character blueprint with the skeletal mesh already available, which looks more like this Cheshire Cat from the Ready Player Me. The one problem with this is that it doesn't have the animations and everything linked up. So just to get things kind of emoting easier, it would be kind of preferable at the moment just to stick with one of the characters already provided in these scenes, because we'll come in and we can see that under the skeletal mesh, we already have things like the ABP animation set up and created, which is just doing simple things like waving the arms and moving in certain ways depending on the response being given. But just to show off what this provides, I mean, that definitely looks better than the mannequin, but like I've mentioned, the problem being is that it will be completely static when you're interacting with it, but it has everything set up for the lip syncing, the Inworld component. So again, you could plug your brain straight back in here, although it's done that for us. The only thing you're going to be missing out on is the fact it's just going to be T-posing for the whole time that you're talking to it. So for this example, I'll give that a miss, but just something I thought was pretty cool as well. With that done, we can press play and we can see what new results that we get. So we just need to make sure that the connection state is connected, and that means we should now have information about the character.
Hi there, I'm the Cheshire Cat, and I'm here to help you out of this mess. I'm a big believer in believing in yourself and never giving up. So what can I do for you?
Okay, and there we go. So as expected, we have the Cheshire Cat. We can see what kind of information this character gives about Wonderland.
Why, it's the most wonderful place in the world. Wonderland is a magical kingdom filled with talking animals, mysterious creatures, and of course the Queen and King of Hearts who rule over it all. It's a place where anything can happen, so be careful.
Asking about other characters is always quite interesting. I think the session just got lost there, so let me just reconnect that one. And of course, I didn't add myself into the list of context because I already have the full 5 connected with the other characters and Wonderland, but they should know about the other characters.
Of course, I know the Mad Hatter. He's one of the most famous virtual influencers on TikTok.
So they know about information
He's
about the
always
character
asking
as well.
people to like and follow him.
Aren't we all asking for people to like and follow us? So that was an example of what can be done with the Inworld API at the moment. Like you've seen here, very, very simple to get those integrations made. I've not done anything off screen. When I've been jumping back and forth between here and the web page, they are the only steps that you need to take. I didn't need to put anything in the config files. It was just a case of using the toolset to link up the API and bringing in the brain to the Inworld character. There's a lot more that you can do. Like you saw, there was a lip sync component. So if you've got the 4 animations ready for facial rigging and that kind of animation, you can add in the lip syncing features. You can also set things up to use the microphone, similar to how I showed you with the Inworld arcade webpage. In this case, I've just opted to avoid that because there's a heavy chance that I would stop recording myself for the video and just end up with a silent OBS recording here. To avoid that, I'm just going with the text option, but hopefully you can see that this has a lot of different use case scenarios. And I think that for things like I've mentioned in larger games where you can allow dev teams to really focus in on the core concepts of their game, building out the world, writing brilliant main character arcs and the villain arcs and everything, but then allowing AI to do something like this, which normally takes a very distant kind of backseat in the development pipeline, but is unfortunately so much in the player's face that it can have meme-worthy results that last for almost a decade, I think, at this stage. I think things like this can be really useful. I know there's a lot of talk about the AI with job securities and things like this, but I think really this can be one of those things where it really leverages the kind of tasks that need to be done, but just never get the production time or value that they deserve. And this can really be used to help leverage and improve on those points. And that really seems to be what Inworld are trying to do, is just improve on the characters that you're adding into your games or experiences. And I should say that for the sponsorship, they've not asked me to say any specific things, give any good or bad feedback. This was just me taking a look at the systems, how you can create a character in the browser, and then if possible showing off some of the stuff in engine. And I've just found the in-engine stuff so interesting that I wanted to make sure I got that into the video as well. With that said, as I mentioned, all of the links to get set up and started are in the description down below. That will be from your free sign up, creating your account, getting the characters. You should have the same demo character sheets as I have, and then getting the different templates as I've recommended. The gallery is a really good template, and the documentation has some really high quality, very detailed documentation to go through as well. But yeah, with all of that, let me know in the comments down below. Is this something you think could be quite interesting, something that you want to get started using right now, or something you might have ideas for in the future in potential projects? Let me know if and how you might be using this down in the comments section.